Moylan, performance coach and keynote speaker with over 20 years in the industry, working with many of the elite from the world of boxing, motorsport and tennis. Ric's contacts and experience he's collated isn't just used for a professional benefit, he also mentors many of the best in his field with the Ric Moylan Mentoring Program. Lucky for me, Ric and I go way back when we first worked as personal trainers in a Manchester gym over 20 years ago. In fact, I was his boss at one point, which of course I like to remind him of once in a while, to which he responds, "You're still trying to be the boss of me now." It's been a pleasure to cheer Ric's career on from the sidelines over the years, watching him work with the likes of Ricky the Hitman Hatton, former WBA super bantamweight Scott Quigg, the late and great TT and BSB rider Simon Andrews, and current history-making British rally driver Chris Ingram, to name but a few. Continuing his positive impact, Ric launched his hugely successful charity Boxing Nights event in Manchester, which has raised to date almost £400,000 for the St Mary's Hospital charity. Discover how to fulfill your potential, master your mindset, and develop unstoppable self-confidence. This is Ric's most recent offering to inspire his MAPS community and all who are hungry for change. Mr. Ric Moylan, hello and welcome to the Rebel Without a Limit podcast.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just processing the title, actually.
Good, amazing. Well, as you know, the history that we've got is insane, and I'm sure we'll touch on that through it. It's going to be a good mindset challenge for us to speak to each other with professional respect, I think, in this one. It's been 20 plus years of growth really on both sides, and it's been amazing to support each other along the way. And when I was finally committed to launching this podcast, I couldn't have thought of anyone better to represent the conversation, as well as on a personal level and a professional level, because of some of the people that you've worked with. So Rebel Without a Limit is all about a limitless podcast, and I think you strive and ooze it with your commitment to personal growth and professional growth as well.
That's the nicest you've been to me in years, you know. Thank you.
Okay, hon?
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna savor this moment, you know. Like you say, of course, our language is professional today. I will take that compliment. Thank you very much. It is the first time ever, you know. So it's nice to be here, obviously, and nice to, you know, of course we chat all the time, but it's nice to chat in this kind of setting and you know, explore what comes of today, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So, I appreciate your time. I know you're an extremely busy man. But how I want us to kick today's conversation off with really is, I want to go back to the beginning. So I mentioned already that we met over 20 years ago working as personal trainers in a gym in Manchester. And, you know, your career is just progressively grown stronger and stronger within performance, but you just went to a completely different level. I left the industry and come back in my own unique way, as I do, but with you, you've just consistently grown, and within your role and within the industry as well, and the profile you've got is insane. So let's go back to, you were at uni, you did sports science, you were in the gym, but what coming from that stage to progress into what you're actually doing now, what was the catalyst for the drive in that, for that mindset and focus and committing to this particular platform in this career?
I think if it's okay with you, if I can go back even further back than that.
Absolutely.
I just loved sport, and as a young man and as a child, and then growing up as a teenager and whatnot like that, I just love sport. I loved all sports. I loved participating in all sports and challenging myself physically and seeing if I could be the best that I could be in those sports. I was super competitive, but it was football in particular that I probably had a little bit of talent in, and for whatever reason, like many young men and women, I just wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to play, and for whatever reason, of course, there ultimately has to be skill and talent and a level. But what actually I realised was that it was two-pronged. That actually, physically, physiologically, there was areas of development that I tried really hard. I lived a disciplined life and I trained hard, but there was always a couple of my peers that were fitter and faster than I was, and I wanted to know why. I wanted to look into it. It spiked this interest in, why am I cramping up, for argument's sake, in my hamstrings or my legs. I've only got short legs, as you know, and why are they not? Yeah, I'm supposedly doing the right things, and so that was kind of part one, and then part two, and this was perhaps I think as I got a little bit older, late teens, early 20s, I actually realised that I had this cap that I wore and this outward facade of being like pretty confident and pretty sure of myself, and actually I wasn't, and actually I had a little bit of an ongoing battle with my mind, in particular my self-confidence and my sort of self-esteem, and that my dialogue going into games and competitive environments and whatnot wasn't helpful. And I then kind of started studying sports science because, as I say, I was really interested in it. I started working with people in general population. You realise that these uber successful people, I was working like yourself, with a lot of professional people. You realise that actually physically they've got areas that they need to work on or want to work on as well. But more so, they've got hopes and dreams and fears and insecurities and all of that kind of stuff. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed and still enjoy helping people, developing others, and alongside that, developing myself. And if I look back then, when I became, really quite aware of these things, I wanted to challenge myself and be the best that I could be, and that remains the same to this day.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love, it's great that we're starting this conversation online together on this podcast, and hopefully it's the first of many, because when we're together, all right, we rip into each other, we do have a good laugh, but conversation always comes back to development. We're always challenging each other to think outside the box. And, I define a rebel who is not someone who's just accepting the norm, but someone who wants to think outside of the norm. And even if you don't feel like you're living with a limitless mindset, just the awareness and the aspiration to live by it is a drive, isn't it? A hunger for it. And there's so many amazing tools and techniques out there, aren't there? And it sounds like from, this journey for me has only been around about 10 years, but for you, it sounds like it's from almost the get-go of stepping into the industry.
Yeah. People ask me about that a lot. What drove you towards your career, and it ultimately was my own journey, and then as I've got in my career, like you say, you've been off and travelled, and I think a little later I've started to, do some of that with work and whatnot. But it's all I've ever done, work-wise. It's all I've ever done. So it's part of my core. It's part of my spine, and I call it being a student of your game, and I'm still a student every single day. I'm challenged by something that I don't know the answer to, or I'm challenged by the questions. As coaches, often we don't have the answers. our role is to ask the questions, isn't it? And to instill the questions. And I of course, I have people around, one of which obviously is yourself, but I have people around me who challenge me and, you know, and ask those questions. But equally, I get up every day and I'm asking questions of myself as well, you know. So
brilliant. I love it. So there's a saying that I remember hearing. I was doing a chat online last year with someone, and it was, if you think you're the most intelligent person in the room, you are in the wrong room.
Yeah.
You know, to have that mindset of always being a student of your game. I love that, by the way. I've not heard you say that. It's a new one. You're a student of your game, and constantly seeing the world with those student eyes. It's so important, isn't it? Because, you know, otherwise you can very quickly tune into an unauthentic lifestyle. So you tune into what you think you should follow, what you think you should be doing, what other people feel comfortable about you doing, rather than you really grabbing life by the balls in the most authentic way and tapping into that student of the game mindset to help you grow and truly create the life that you desire and deserve.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the key word there is you. So, and each student of your game. So, of course, you know, there's various things in my life that you know, that I'm trying to master, and I'm trying to learn to cook better food, for example, and whatnot like that, you know, as a daft example. And we've all got different hobbies and whatnot, but I believe that there's something out there for us all to really be a student of our own game, that we've all got something to offer. I had this conversation with a friend last night, and I said to this friend, I said, you know, what is your calling? What is it that you're here to do? What is it that you're here to put out there to the world? And for any of us, that for me is our student of our game, you know. And I'm constantly, you know, surrounded by people who challenge me, and I don't always like it, you know, and of course it's uncomfortable, right? But we all know that's where the growth is, and that's where the development is, you know.
100%. So you've invested, and we've done courses together. You've invested a huge amount, and you obviously from a professional angle, but a personal level as well, to combat all sorts of things that we as humans we naturally pick up over the years. Now we're going to come back to the insane list of athletes that you've worked with over the years. We're going to come back to that. Before we get to that point, over the years and the growth that you've made and the techniques that you've found for you, is there anything that's really stood out that's been the ultimate game changer that you've trained in or just taken part in to support you in your real vibration or frequency of a limitless mindset, really?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've done a ton of courses. We've done courses out in Barcelona, NLP courses, and all that kind of stuff, and various coaching, and you know, various sort of sub modalities of coaching and mindset, and of course they're all, you know, is knowledge is power, and practice is power with these things, of course. But I think for me personally, I think I've always had this ongoing, you know, we've got busy lives, haven't we? And we've got busy mindsets. All of us have. We're surrounded by 1,000,001 things that we've got to do or we've got going on. And I've always actually had a busy mind. And as I've become more aware and as I've developed and grown, the realization was there that a lot of it wasn't helpful. And that's all, you know, okay, you realize that, but then, you know, what do you do about it? And calming my mind and allowing me to get into, you know, what I suppose is like known as like a flow state, isn't it? I knew kind of how you supposedly should get into a flow state, but I was always too busy, and I'd be thinking of 50 different things. And I know you've argued and pulled me on stuff, and you've been like, concentrate in the past. And so anyway, breath work. You know, and breath work, I actually realized that I've been doing breath work all my life, and it's helped me all my life. I just wasn't conscious of it. So when I was 6 years old, when I started martial arts, they taught us breath work. They taught us breath work in kata, and they taught us to sit still and to be present. And I wasn't aware of it. Then I look back, and the times when in my own, sporting career and performance or when I've done keynotes on stages, I've usually calmed my mind and gone on to do well when I've taken just a couple of deep breaths before I've stepped onto stage. And then when I've had times when, and sleep something, I'm digressing here, I'm aware, but I do a little bit of breath work before I go to bed every night, and I tend to sleep much better when I do it. And of course, there's a ton of different techniques out there, but for me, it's just about consciously breathing, just about sitting still, and taking some deep breaths in through my nose and out through my mouth, and in a variety of settings, as I say, sporting settings, uncomfortable conversations, maybe conflicts, or what I call them courageous conversations. That's something that somebody taught me. Those aren't my words. A variety of different settings. I find that if I'm disciplined with my breathing, I tend to physically and mentally perform better. I tend to, if I'm sitting writing a book at the minute, as you know, and my mind will wander, and that, and this will probably be familiar for a lot of people, that temptation to reach for my phone and start scrolling social media or whatever, I'll just step back, take it, and I don't have to be in a meditative state. This could be in bloody Starbucks. I'll just take a couple of deep breaths, calm my mind, make sure I'm in control of my inner dialogue, and say, okay, come on, set some boundaries. Let's do 30 minutes of work. Let's turn all the tech off, because it will always distract us. Take a deep breath again, and away I go. Is it my best work? Not always, but it's an ongoing developmental process.
It's so simple when we allow ourselves to believe it's so simple, isn't it? The basics are the simplest and most powerful forms of bringing us back into the present, aren't they? Like the breath work, we don't realize how naturally as humans shallow breathe, don't we? And that causes a stress response in the body, and then therefore it causes stress in the mind and in the body. So those simple commitments to a deep breath, diaphragmatic breathing, it's so powerful, isn't it? But we can overcomplicate and overwhelm ourselves with how much we need to do to sort ourselves out, if you will. It's just those simple steps. Breathing is so simple. It's huge, isn't it, to give to the body and the mind.
Well, we talk about the lifebloods of our being, of our physical being. Your hydration, your nutrition, your blood, your oxygen. If that is cut away, that arguably will take us into trouble quicker than all of them. And I mean, I do a lot of resilience work as well now, because that was forged out of athletes and high performance and whatnot like that. So I kind of gravitated. I've got a lot of friends in the military, gravitated towards learning from them and learning about how they're taught resilience and so forth like that. And again, if you look at the various high performance programs in various militaries all over the world, they all coach and teach breath work. They all do it as a place of calming their mind, as a place of controlling emotion, as a place of making, aware or having awareness and conscious decisions. And you used the key word a second ago, and I remember, going, and I was lucky enough to spend and I still do, I spend a bit of time with some guys who were very, very high up in the special forces in this country. And I remember on one of our first conversations, and I said to them, I want you to teach me how you're able to physically do the things that you can do to your body, how you're able to push yourself to those extremes. I want you to teach me how you're mentally able to have such, mastery and control of your mind and so forth like that. And this chap, Gaz, and they're a bit funny about their names, aren't they? So we'll just kind of leave that there. And he he said to me, get a pen and paper. And I said, okay. And I sort of sat down and was ready to sort of take all these notes. And he said, we do the basics well.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. Right. He was like, write that down. We do the basics well. And I was like, shit, okay. And I think that's kind of indicative of, you know, when we're seeking, you know, high performance or a limitless mind, as you call it, limitless mind or body or whatever. I think we are seeking these golden nuggets of, you know, I get asked all the time, your athletes, I want their training plan. And I'm like, it's really simple, you know, so do the basics well.
The basics, it is hydration, sleep is key, isn't it? I know we're both into these Whoop watches. Maybe seeking sponsorship there you go. The great thing is that the society now, we've got so many distractions, haven't we, with all of the different apps, the different social platforms, which are a huge benefit for business and to get our voice out there and to get our impact out there that we strive to do. Now we've got to be very careful with how much it can distract us and send us off our path, really. The great thing I love about these Whoop watches is when you have these fitness watches, a lot of them you're distracted by the messages, by the calls coming through, etc. Look, Whoop is down to all that you need it for is your sleep, your recovery. So it's great, isn't it? And we think we don't need these tools, but when we do start to use them and educate ourselves on the benefits of it, it's been a powerful little tool for me to use that. Definitely.
Well, you know, I think I touched on the narrative earlier, and because we all create 1,000 narratives a day in our mind, don't we? You know, we you know, and I mean no offense to anyone here. I know there's a lot of emotional reasons, and there can be some medical reasons, but there is a lot of narratives around weight gain that whereby you know, people will give a narrative that perhaps they are eating a little healthier than they are, let's say. I mean, no offense by that, but, you know, training, you know, that we've given our best or we've given our optimums, or that you know, that Netflix, that extra episode that we watch at night before bed, that it's okay, it doesn't make me feel tired in the morning and so forth like that. And we all have these narratives, and when you explore yourself, and then when you do sometimes add a bit of science into it as well, what it does actually do is give you the facts, and you know, that's why I use these things, because I'm no different to anybody else. I'll sneak an extra episode in on Netflix, you know, if I can. But you know, then when my recovery is not right, and I need to, you know, be at my best each day, you know, the facts don't lie. You know, optimum sleep, we tend to perform as humans better if we've got a regular bedtime, you know, sleeping routine. It's boring, but as I always say, short-term pain leads to long-term pleasure.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's move on to these athletes then. So your career has been jam-packed full with so much. You've been firmly making your imprint on the professional athlete world, if you were willing to accept that. So you've worked with professional boxers, tennis players, now currently also working with Chris Ingram, who's currently contesting the World Rally. Phenomenal CV, a phenomenal collection of mindsets and physical abilities as well. So how did that, let's go back to how it actually come about, how you found yourself getting into the professional athlete stage, really, and supporting them and get involved in coaching.
I think I kind of touched on it a bit before, that I enjoy people. We talked about off record that you know, it's great to develop our business and our brand and our profile by having a digital world, let's say. But ultimately, we're both people. I'm not sure that's right, but anyway. And I liked training people, and I liked and I still like helping people be the best they can be, and because I'm trying to be the best I can be, and I have good days and bad days and up days and down days, and I've always been very open with that. You know, I'm certainly not sat on a sort of ivory tower. These are things I've experienced and remain experiencing myself. But I love sport, so the passion is there. It's always been there, and I'm competitive, and I wanted to challenge myself to be the best that I could be, and I remember Tony Robbins' statement from many years ago when I first became a personal trainer. You know, the key to success is rejection. The key to massive success is massive rejection. And I wanted to work in sport at the highest level. So I kind of got rejected quite a few times, and I'm not one to take no for an answer, and I decided to figure out a way and figure out a plan. And I love boxing. That was kind of where it started. I love boxing as well as football. So I started working with some young up and coming boxers. I volunteered my time. I wasn't paid, and the truth of the matter is, and I have a lot of young coaches and practitioners who will come to me and say, you know, I want to work in elite sport and I want to work at the highest levels. And I always tell them to go and work with juniors, because as the juniors progress, they will progress. And you know, sport is a tough world. It's super, you know, pressure, stress, all that kind of stuff. And there's more margin for error at the entry levels. Of course, those juniors want to win and so forth like that. But as they're growing, you're growing. And so I started at the right level. I started with young athletes because that was the level I was at. And, you know, as they progressed, I progressed. And you know, such as with Liam Brody, you know, and he's had an up and down career historically, but he's really, you know, on the up now as he gets towards the main of his career. I've retained working periods with him right through that journey, because we've got that strong relationship and that strong.
Is he British number 4 now? Is that right? Is it about
3 or 4?
British number 4?
Yeah, 3 or 4. He's on the verges of the top 100 now in the world, you know, and he's been very open about 4 or 5 years ago wanting to quit tennis altogether, you know. So I kind of started out at a voluntary level, at a junior level. Of course, then again, going back to that student of your game and that ability to self-reflect and to take, you know, honest, tough feedback from, you know, sport gives you feedback anyway because of results. You know, if you're losing all the time, that'll tell you there's something not, you know, genuinely not quite right. And particularly if your athletes are talented and the results aren't there. So, you know, the results give you feedback, but then going back to what you said before, you've got to be in the right room. You've got to be around people who are critiquing you and critiquing your work and pushing you, you know. And I know you're going to speak with Anna in a few weeks, who's somebody that I've been around a lot, who's super tough with her feedback, but that grows you, and then you pass that along to your athletes and your clients and your students, and as you get a little better, they get a little better, and the journey upwards, which is very much, you know, it's like surfing, isn't it? You know, you carry on, and you know, so I would self-reflect all the time, and I would you know, analyze myself and think, okay, this is where I want to develop. This is an area that I'd like to improve my knowledge. I would go and look, you know, seek out other people who were doing what I wanted to do, and, you know, push my way in and get amongst them and be around them, and be prepared to take a risk, and then again challenge myself and say, okay, well, all right, this is working in boxing, but from a mindset perspective, tennis requires 3 or 4 hours sometimes on court, and that's a real battle. So okay, what elements of this mental and physical preparation in boxing can I transfer into tennis? What elements of the skills and reaction training that a boxer may use can I take into motorsport, or vice versa? So I remain a student of it. The passion is still there, and if it wasn't, I would walk from it. So yeah, you know, I still enjoy it. I'm still trying to be the best that I can be, and the defeats still hurt, they still sting, but we take the feedback and we go again.
So there's been an array of projects you've been involved in, whether it be pro athletes or TV. You trained Curtis Pritchard, didn't you, for ITV, which was a brilliant show. What a guy, he did really well. But coming back to the experiences you've had with the athletes, is there any particular athlete, whether you don't have to answer this, but I'm going to ask you it, that has really over the years blown you away with the mindset that they've had and the commitment to their craft, really? Is there anyone in particular that's really stood out?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been lucky, and you earn your luck as well, I suppose. But I've been able to work with some brilliant athletes and be around, not just work with brilliant athletes as well. Even some that I haven't worked with so directly, I've been around them as well, and been able to talk to them and absorb and learn from them, you know, and yes, we'll coach them and teach them some stuff. So the one who springs to mind there with that is Andy Murray. You know, because I've never worked with him, but I've been around him quite a bit in you know, the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and to look at his mental strength to come back from injuries and to still have that desire to compete at the highest level, which is the same now. And these are his words that you know, we were sat having a cup of tea, you know, talking about, and his desire to be at the highest level now is stronger than it was 15 years ago, or whatever the time frame was. You know, so that he's mentally a real inspiration. I think for me, obviously, you know, being around Ricky Hatton and looking at not his successes were slight, you know, his absolute peak, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, was a little bit before I joined, just slightly before I joined the team, but then watching his desire to overcome some of the battles that he's had in his, you know, his mental health and stuff like that. And Tyson Fury's been in his gym, so I've seen a little bit of that as well. You know, it's been incredible. But you know, from a pure discipline and what I call wringing the sponge, you know, at squeezing the absolute most out of your talent. Scott Quigg, the former WBA world champion, is absolutely incredible. I've never, ever come across somebody with such drive and determination and self-discipline. And it wasn't only the things he was prepared to do, it was the things he was prepared to cut out of his life. It was the things he was prepared to sacrifice to be the absolute best he could be. And he, you know, really squeezed the sponge. Of course, he was talented, but I always think he's quite been given the recognition for the fact he was a very talented boxer, but incredible athlete, incredible discipline, incredible mindset, you know, and absolutely got every ounce out of him, out of his career, you know, and had an amazing career.
And a lovely guy too. He supports you, so you do charity boxing nights every year.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't give him a compliment, you know, not a chance. But yeah, he supports. Sorry, you were saying he supports all my charity work and whatnot like that. Yeah, so we get on well, but I'm not going to compliment him anytime soon. I've done enough of that just then, you know. So
love it. So great, wicked. So athlete wise, moving forwards, is there anyone that you would really, that impresses you so much with their focus and their drive and wherever they are in their career, is there anyone that you would love to link up with or support in some way?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
You've got me out there. I mean, there's obviously uber successful athletes that I look at and think, wow, you impress me, and everything you do impresses me. There's a ton of people there, of course, household names, and there's a couple of junior athletes coming through that perhaps listeners may not know. But what I would say to answer that question is that I firmly believe, and of course, I look back at at my career to date with immense pride. Really, I do. That's something I didn't always do, but I do believe I've got one more, maybe two more elite performers in my system still, and so no, there isn't anybody right now that springs to mind. There's of course young footballers and so forth like that, or young, obviously like Chris Ingram coming through. He's super talented. But what I would say, we talk about boundaries, and I'm very clear with my boundaries with these athletes now, and with any of my clients. I do a lot of work with companies and CEOs and all that kind of stuff. I'm very clear, and I set my expectations that if I'm prepared to give you everything I've got, but then you've got to match me and go beyond me. You've got to go beyond me, and that your talent isn't enough. And that's not being negative. That's just the facts of life.
Yeah.
So there absolutely is. There'll be locally some, good athletes. There's a young tennis player coming through right now who's phenomenal. Obviously, you look at like Raducanu and people like that. She's immense. So there's tons of young athletes. But what I would say is, I'm just really clear with them. Okay, you're an amazing talent, but if we're going to work together, here's what I expect, and there's no negotiation on that. I would love, just throwing this out there, to get in at Man United. I'm a massive, sorry if that offends anyone, but I would love to get in at Man United and get you Scousers out of there and get us back where we belong. That answers your question, doesn't it? I'd kick some ass, definitely. I've done some work, as you know, with some footballers and in various clubs. I would definitely like to get in there and show them what I've got, definitely.
Great, we'll watch this space. Coming back to the Chris Ingram then, right? So Chris is openly talked about, and he's passionate about talking about mental health and this strive for combating mindset and thriving within his own mindset, really, and what he's achieved in his career to date, and what he could potentially achieve moving forwards, because this year has gotten off to a great start for him, hasn't it?
Yep.
Tell us a bit about where he's at with that, and with regards to his mindset and focus, and where he believes that he can take it.
Chris is really comfortable with his vulnerability, and that I think is something that myself included. Historically, obviously I'm quite a bit older than him. You can't used to quite a bit. All right, thank you. A lot older than him, a lot older and uglier, but there we go. Chris is really comfortable with his vulnerability, and that he is forming one of his foundations for strength and growth, and that it's okay to have good days, bad days, ups, downs, highs and lows. But what it's about is having the right support around you, doing the right things, controlling what you can control, living the right life, and he's in a really, really good place. He's super talented. Of course, he's got areas of development that he's got to focus on, because ultimately we've all got to do the work. And I believe he's got good sponsors and a good team behind him, and I believe he is capable of going to the very, very top. I really believe that. I really believe that he has got everything needed to get to the very, very top. In boxing, if you're going to be a boxer and expect to never get punched in the face, you're not going to have a very long boxing career, and your boxing career is not going to go so well. Even the best in the world, the greatest in the world, people like Floyd Mayweather, for example, at some point they'll get punched in the face. They'll get that that punch that they don't expect, or that punch that they didn't expect to hurt, but it really did. And they have to at some point bite down on their mouth guard. They have to find some inner grit and inner determination that they've got to search their soul for, that we as coaches can't give them. And Chris will have more challenges ahead, like any athlete or any person in life. We have the loss of siblings and family, and just as an example, Chris will have to bite down at some point. He will have to bite into his gum shield and find something within himself. But I believe that behind the kind of boy next door smile, I believe that there's a toughness there, and I believe he's got it. I'm writing a book. I mentioned it earlier, and the book's called The Lonely Walk, and it's based on the metaphor and the mindset of a boxer as he or she walks that lonely walk to the ring, and I believe that we all face that lonely walk in our life, and it's about doing all the prep and all those things that I just said about what you can control and so forth like that. But I'm fairly certain, talking to a lot of top-level boxers and top-level athletes, that there's that little microsecond where they're about to walk and they go, oh, should I do this or not? And they take that breath, as we talked about before, and they walk on. And, high performance, being limitless, it is not easy. It's challenging. At some point, you will have to bite down, take a deep breath, and make a decision to carry on. And I think if Chris does those things and does the work and gets a tiny bit of luck, because I think we need we all need that as well, I think he's got a great career ahead of him.
It's confidence in your ability to deliver for yourself and your ability to actually turn up for yourself, isn't it? I've had this conversation about confidence quite a bit the last couple of weeks with clients and friends, and it's why am I not getting anywhere? I don't believe it. I'm just not meant to. Well, turn up for yourself more, commit to turning up, own it all, and that's where the confidence builds in your ability, in what you can achieve, in everything, in every aspect, isn't it? Well, I'm excited to see what he does. Hopefully maybe we can even pull him on this podcast. That would be wonderful. He's the drive and the hunger for it that him and the team have got is phenomenal to watch in World Rally, and to see Brit doing it is brilliant, isn't it? So love that. So coming back to you then, you've got so many things going on at the minute, so we're going to make people aware of everything that you have going on. But before we get there, I've got to ask you, what did you think of the Tyson and White fight the weekend?
I mean, Tyson's I like Dillian White. He's good, good honest pro. He always gives his best and whatnot like that. But I think, there is world-class athletes out there, and then there is elite-class athletes out there. And, for whatever reason, they've just got that little bit more. And I think Tyson Fury is an incredible athlete. I mean, most people are tall compared to me, as we talked about, but he is
size, Rick.
Hockey Rocket. Yeah, he is a ginormous man. He is absolutely huge, but and has had so many challenges. But he is, of course, amazingly talented, but has done the work. And yeah, I mean, it was an incredible performance. I think he had more levels in him. I think he had more gears. He did what he needed to do, and yeah, I think he's quite comfortably the number one out there for me right now, I think. And I like all the others, and of course, sport, fine margins, heavy, and it's heavyweight boxing, so one punch changes everything. The others out there, Joshua and people like that, they're incredible athletes as well, and could win on any given day. But I don't know. I just think Fury is special right now.
Agreed. Okay, so two things I want to ask you to round the chat off before we just share everything that you have going on and where people can find you. 3 words that you relate to defining a limitless mindset.
Free. So being free. Whatever that is, that just came to my mind when I thought this through, because I'm sure you won't mind me saying you gave me a tiny heads up on this one, unlike some of the ones you threw at me earlier. A limitless mindset, I think, is about being free. And I go back to like some of the Red Bull athletes and the extreme athletes, and they do things that people say can't be done, or world. Even going back to, Roger Bannister, let's say the 4-minute mile, I forget the stat, but once he'd conquered that 4-minute mile, how many other athletes conquered that 4-minute mile within 12 months afterwards? I forget the number, but it was because their mind became free. They realized it could be done. And so I think having a limitless mind is being a free thinker. When others tell you can't do this, you say, I'll find a way, it can be done. That's great. 1.
Okay.
Did you want 2 or 3?
I like 3 words. But then I was going to ask you what a limitless mindset means to you. So that's it right there. That's it, defining it. But so you've got free, and I like that word free, because freedom is my word. When people say to you, what's your word? The one word that really resonates and I always come back to is freedom. So freedom of my limiting mindset, freedom of my limiting beliefs, all of that, freedom of everything. And with that free word, I get that, and that it excites me, that word as well. So
the other 2 that I came up with was student, that we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always developing. It's an ongoing process, that our mindset, it's like training our muscles, like training our abs, like, we just because we get abs, if I can remember what they were, but anyway, if we get abs, at the end of January, and then stop doing the work, by the end of February, March, we're not going to have abs anymore. Being a student, it's an ongoing process. And then the final one that came to my mind was mastery, that it's about facing the challenges that are out there and trying to master them, master yourself.
Awesome. Love it, Ric. So what have you got coming up next then? Where can people find you if they want to get involved in anything with you? What's accessible to them? What have you got going on?
Loads coming up. I'm at Ric Moylan, RICMOYLAN, on all the channels. That's my website as well, www.ricmoylan.co.uk. I've got, as you said, bit of travel with Chris to some of his rallies in Europe and whatnot like that. I have got potentially a couple of sporting projects that I can't quite discuss right now, so we'll move on from them. I'm doing a ton of keynote seminars, as I always do. I'm getting out and about to various sort of companies, and I do some charity work as well, doing keynotes and locally in Manchester, where I'm from, and perhaps a bit beyond. And then, as always, every year I run a big event called Charity Boxing Nights, which raises money for Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. So that's October. Somewhere in there, I'm going to find some personal time as well. I'm writing my book, as we discussed earlier. So I've got loads on. But I'm on all the channels, and like yourself, making an effort to be more available via live videos and give bits of knowledge and assistance where I can.
And you've got a great community as well. You've been building your MAPS community, as you do like walking events together, don't you? And you keep each other going and support each other online, which it's been crucial the last couple of years, and great that you're continuing to grow that community and the program as well that you've created around it.
Yeah, that, you know, people can get involved. That's all on my website, all through my social media channels. We do some stuff there that, like you say, where we organise walks and little events and stuff, and there's no money involved. It's just about getting people together and having chats and being present and friendship and community. But then there is a self-development program that people, you know, can get involved in as well, which is where I teach people, you know, the 6 key principles that I use to teach all my athletes and whatnot like that. And that is through what I call my MAPS coaching.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you, Ric. And I'm very proud that I haven't called you Richard yet, which is not normal. And we've been very well behaved, I think. So we did well.
Yeah, well, you know, it's got to be once a year, hasn't it? You know, so yeah, we did all right.
Yeah, love it. Thank you for your time, though. I know how busy you are. I think it's really important for us to share some of the chats that we have, really, and the skills and just inspirations that we've picked up over the years. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being willing to share with me online. And I look forward to more of these chats. And I wish you the best of luck with everything. And thank you for coming on Rebel Without a Limit.
You are very welcome, my dear friend.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell for notifications, and share with anyone you think that might enjoy it too.